Welcome everybody. We are so excited to be here today with all of the student interns. And today we are going to be talking about the sad passing of Traci Braxton, who passed away at the age of 50 from esophageal cancer. And so we're going to dive deep into this topic today with input from all of our students. So welcome everybody. We're excited that you're here with us. Today, we'd like to thank the students for their contributions. We have several speaking with us today: Melanie Graham, Katee MacCauley, Matthew Torres, Alona Boshonek, Lauren Robinson, and myself and Craig. And we'd like to thank all of the students that contributed by making the slides as well: Amanda, Heather, Sondra, Athena, Hanniah, Melanie, and Matthew. So thank you all so much for your contributions.
On March 22nd, 2002, Traci Braxton passed away after a year-long battle with esophageal cancer. An R&B singer, she was also well known for starring in the reality television series Braxton Family Values, alongside her siblings, Toni, Towanda, Trina, and Tamar. From the American Cancer Society, in the human body, the esophagus is a muscular tube that transfers food and liquids from the throat to the upper part of the stomach. Esophageal cancer is cancer that forms within this tube. There are two primary forms of esophageal cancer. Squamous cell carcinoma forms in the inner layer and most common in the neck and upper chest cavity. Adenocarcinoma forms in the gland cells that make mucus, the most common in the lower esophagus. In other rare forms, lymphomas, melanomas, and sarcomas. Though the specific causes of esophagus cancer is unknown, there are certain risk factors that could potentially increase the chance of developing the cancer. Alcohol and tobacco use may irritate the throat, leading the DNLs to change over time. Inherited gene mutations are also a risk. Howell-Evans syndrome, inherited changes in the RHBDF2 gene, are most at risk for squamous cell type cancer. Bloom syndrome changes in the BLM gene. This gene is essential in making the proteins that stabilize DNA as cells divide. Fanconi anemia, a rare syndrome where the DNA cells are damaged and irreparable. Changes in certain FANC genes increase the risk for cancer development. And familial Barrett's esophagus, a syndrome amongst families with Barrett's esophagus and adenocarcinoma of the esophagus and the GI junction. Trouble swallowing is some of the symptoms. Food may feel like it's stuck in the person's throat. It starts mild and then gets worse. The body begins to make extra saliva. There's chest pain. It may feel like heartburn. It's also accompanied with weight loss. The person changes his or her diet to accommodate softer foods when swallowing becomes difficult. There's also hoarseness and chronic cough.
So some of the esophageal cancer risk factors are as follows. For age, it could be people between the ages of 45 and 70 that are most likely to be diagnosed. The gender, men are 3 to 4 times more likely to develop esophageal cancer than females. The race, those of African American descent are twice as likely as those of Caucasian descent to develop the squamous cell type of tissue that is needed to develop into esophageal cancer. Tobacco use can also play a part, using forms of tobacco that include smoking, chewing tobacco, and snuff. Alcohol use and the heavy use of alcohol over time, especially when combined with the tobacco use. Diet, the studies have shown that diets low in fruits and vegetables lack essential vitamins and minerals. Obesity, having a higher rate of body fat and a higher BMI can be a risk factor. And then damage and changes to the esophageal tissue, accidental consumption of lye, inflammation and damage from GERD, achalasia and swallowing difficulties, pylosis, and plumber vision syndrome. So who was Toni Braxton? So she was born on April 2nd, 1971, and she grew up surrounded by many siblings. She was an R&B singer who hit number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100 for Last Call in 2014. Braxton Family Values reality TV star featuring her family, their highs and lows, family feuds, relationship troubles, and fast-paced career that aired for 7 seasons. Traci was diagnosed with esophageal cancer roughly a year ago and had privately been seeking treatment before being released on hospice care. She passed peacefully with her family gathered by her side. She was a beloved daughter, sister, mother, wife, grandmother, and a friend. She dedicated much of her life working with support charities and nonprofit organizations helping disabled children and women facing health and societal challenges. The role of disease and how plant-based helps. A diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of esophageal cancer. Diets high in fiber, lutein, and folate are the most effective. Plant-based diets lower cancer rates because plants contain phytochemicals that protect cells from damage. Phytochemicals are also anti-inflammatory. Studies suggest that eating plant-based has many health benefits, such as weight loss, improved gut health and immune system, decreased risk of disease, and lower inflammation. Cancer patients are advised to avoid red or processed meats, as the chemicals compounds in the meats can be cancer-causing.
Some of the cancer survival rates, experts estimate that esophageal cancer survival rates after diagnosis are on average of 20% for the next 5 years. This means that 1 in 5 people with esophageal cancer will survive the next 5 years after being diagnosed. This survival rate number can fluctuate between 5 to 47% depending on the following factors: how large the area of cancer is, if the cancer is found late or early, if the cancer has spread, then treatment is harder and the survival rate is lower than 20%. Cancer weight loss. In most cases, the patients suffering from esophageal cancer have experienced weight loss prior to receiving the diagnosis. Data suggests greater than 10% of patients. Weight loss in esophageal cancer patients is amongst the highest alongside pancreatic cancer. Common reasons for weight loss is due to having difficulty swallowing and decreased appetite. Esophageal cancer holistic treatment, immunotherapy. This stimulates natural defenses within the immune system to combat cancer. Dendritic enhancer or T cell modulators. This is the peptide chains of tens of amino acids that appear to store all of the experience of the immune system. It educates the immune system so that the body itself will eliminate the cancer. Hypothermia uses heat for direct treatment of tumors or increase the vulnerability of the cancer cells to other forms of treatment, such as immunotherapy, vitamin C, chemotherapy, and radiotherapy. Liposomal mistletoe, a nutritional supplement that studies show activate natural killer cells, T cells, macrophages, and monocytes. Glutathione, a highly reactive natural tripeptide found throughout all cells. It removes and detoxifies carcinogens, which can have a profound effect on cell survival.
Foods that help fight cancer. Foods high in flavonoids, such as found in many plant-based foods. Vitamin-rich foods that have vitamin A, C, and E, as well as folic acid. Mineral-dense foods that have calcium, selenium, and zinc. And high antioxidant foods such as strawberries. Results from phase 2 of randomized control study in China showed that lymphoized or freeze-dried strawberry powder increased strength 10 times. Freezing, drying strawberries concentrate the patient's diagnosis with esophageal dysplasia were given 60 grams a day for 6 months and were shown to exhibit the progression of precancerous growth. Mental state esophagus cancer. Holistic health methods such as yoga and meditation can be used to minimize the stress that chemotherapy treatment places on patients. Stress can increase physical and mental health issues. The less stress that a patient feels, the stronger their immune system will be. This is to help process the chemotherapy and to combat the cancer. Yoga has been found to decrease stress in oncology nurses and can be used in conjunction with routine medical treatment. pH levels in the food we eat. pH level ranges from 1 to 14, acidic 1 to 7, and alkaline 7 to 14. The ideal range is 7.3 to 7.4. Cancer cells thrive in low pH acidic environments. Cancer cells also generally range in pH from 6.4 to 7.0. Cancer cells grow and can make your pH level even more. There are natural ways to increase pH levels in your body, preventive and curative medicine. Plant-based diets increase alkaline levels.
Vegan eating and prevention of cancer. Non-vegan, high-fat and processed foods directly affect the pH level by lowering it to an acidic level. Many of the foods we consume are acidic. These foods contribute to an environment that is primed for cancer to take hold. Too much acid in the system hinders the body's ability to function normally, leading to acute and chronic medical issues and disease. Vegan. Vegan eating increases alkalinity, which leaves a less desirable environment for cancer to develop and thrive. Cancer can survive in 7.4 pH level, however, vegan eating can continue to increase levels above this that are less hospitable for it to develop and or thrive. Maintaining a higher pH level can also help to reduce other deadly diseases and reduce overall health problems. Wellness, activity, and sleep. Any wellness activity that allows for at least 2 hours of relaxation can increase melatonin production. Melatonin is naturally made by the body and aids in sleep. More sleep reduces the effects of stress, which contributes to disease formation. Melatonin is an antioxidant that can inhibit the growth of certain cancer cells. The immune system and its role in disease. What is an immune system? The immune system is our defense system against harm from outside invaders. Its primary goal and function is to stop and limit infection. It is vital for our survival. It uses cellular communication to identify threats in areas. Once a threat is recognized, it goes into action to fight it, with either an innate or adaptive response. Innate response is the first occurrence of an attack and non-specific. The adaptive response is the second response. It is a specific and recognizes the threat from previous attacks. Because it is such a complex system, if it does not operate properly, it is then compromised or overworked, which can lead to other health problems. How does our diet and behavior affect it? Proper nutrition is required for optimal cellular function. When the immune system is activated, it requires additional energy. Macrophage cells, which are mobile white cells used to fight infection, require nitric oxide. This can be created by the amino acid arginine. Arginine is also needed to generate vitamin A and zinc for cell division, which allows for the immune system to have a proliferative response and increase the number of cells to fight off an infection. The majority of immune cells are found in the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, GALT, where several components work together to determine if what was ingested is beneficial. Microbes in the gut change over time, but can be reset by the introduction of probiotics and prebiotics into the diet. Plant-based foods also allow beneficial peptides and lipids to reach the human gut microbiome that otherwise would have been lost in the upper digestive tract with non-plant-based foods.
Esophageal cancer and raw juicing. Juice becomes an important part of the patient's diet because swallowing food is painful and difficult. The practice of juicing is important because, number one, a combination of fruits and plants includes nutritions that can't be found in processed juices. Number two, it preserves necessary nutrients. And number three, it cuts down on preservatives and sugar, making it healthier for the patient. Avoid acidic fruits to reduce throat irritation. Theories about esophageal cancer. Drinking alcohol causes esophageal cancer. Infections from HPV can cause this cancer. Smoking can lead to this cancer. Esophageal cancer is not linked to genetics. Time for discussion. We will now be starting a discussion based off of today's topic. We encourage you to participate in this discussion by sharing your thoughts and ideas. We will be reading viewers' comments, and our team of students will be discussing these responses as well as adding our thoughts.
Okay, so we are going to jump into the questions now. So I will read each one of them, and then we'll just kind of go around and ask everybody if they have any input on that as we go. So the first question today is, how can exercise and a healthy diet safeguard against esophageal cancer? And per the Blue Zone rules, where people live to be over 100 years in age, 25 minutes of exercise is critical. Fueling your body with plant-based organic foods aid in a healthier lifestyle. So I'll read the question one more time. How can exercise and a healthy diet safeguard against esophageal cancer? Matt, did you want to start us off with that one?
Sure. So, just from what we learned in the slides, that we can see that, there were risk factors of obesity, alcohol consumption that increase the chances of cancer. So if we think about how to be healthy, if you want to fight obesity, you think about being physically active, the food you eat, and just how you live your everyday life. Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol is going to be such a deterrent to being physically active for most people. I just find that is going to be, is a pretty clear indicator of, minimizing some of the risk factors that are out there. I see, we talked about some of it being whether it is or is not genetic. And, I think if it is and you have a higher risk, you do have to try and take care of yourself to the best of your ability to prevent those, to prevent the cancer or any cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Melanie, did you have something you wanted to add there?
Oh, I wanted to say, as far as the diet, so it's really important to keep the esophageal tissue healthy. And so by just making sure you're not eating foods that are going to cause any inflammation, if you're not smoking or drinking, that's going to help keep all those tissues as healthy as possible to help reduce the risk of getting the cancer.
Yes, absolutely.
I would like to add to that as well. And when you're talking about the tissue being healthy, back on the slide about the strawberries, what I found doing some of that research was that what it is the freeze-dried strawberries, the nutrients that are in there, when you freeze dry it, because the strawberry is like 90% water, that it actually concentrates the power of it. And that's what they did in that study. They used highly concentrated strawberry powder for treatment, and that's what they used. And you were able to see that there was that it helped repair the esophagus.
That's pretty fascinating, actually.
It really is. I mean, even if you think about tomatoes and lycopene, if you cook the tomatoes, you get lycopene. If you don't, then it's less there. So a very similar theory. I like that.
Yeah, and I would add there too with the exercise portion, towards the end of the presentation, it started to talk about the gut and the lymphatic system. And one of the things that is critically important with our lymphatic system is that it doesn't have its own pump. And so it's such a critical piece of our immune system. And yet at the same time, since that lymphatic system doesn't have its own pump, if we're not moving and our muscles aren't contracting and releasing throughout the day, the lymph in our system becomes very stagnant, and then it becomes very hard for our body to repair itself at all. So very, very important as far as the exercise, even if we just consider the lymphatic system. And if for some reason I would say that someone has a disability and they can't exercise, then it would be important to add other things like a lymphatic massage, dry brushing, and other things that can actually stimulate the lymphatic system to keep that lymph flowing through the system for your immune system. Katee, did you want to add something for this one?
I mean, everything that you've said is just so accurate. It's this whole presentation is really about recognizing those factors that are going to lead to a higher likelihood of esophageal cancer and being preventive early on so that we can kind of cut down those risks.
Yeah, absolutely. Who did I miss here? Alona?
I was just thinking, going off of the risk factors, just all the previous studies that have been researched just on everything, whether it's the Healthy People Guidelines or CDC guidelines, not just for esophageal cancer, but really preventing any sickness, just how important maintaining a healthy diet and whether it's getting that 25 to 30 minutes of exercise every day really is crucial, just for protecting your body overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lauren?
Yeah, I think that particularly, I think it's just so interesting that it's a big, like, nurture versus nature kind of thing. Like, it's not necessarily, like, directly connected to genetics, and thus we can make steps in our daily, like, behavioral life to prevent it. And I think that I'm learning that, you know, as of something new, and I think that exercise coming into play is just, like, a massive role in any kind of preventative, like, care. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, let's go
I'll
ahead.
add one thing. So when you think about exercise and you're thinking about, you know, having a healthy diet, you know, exercise, one of the things it does is it makes you sweat. And what sweating does is it actually detoxifies you. That is an important part where, you know, most of us are sitting all day long. You've got to get out there and you've got to move so you can get the toxins out of your body. So it's very important. And the same thing whenever it comes to a healthy diet, especially it should be organic foods, because organic foods are going to have, at their best, none, very little toxins that are in there. It's just going to be that healthy diet, those fruits and vegetables that are going to then work together, and they, with all the different phytonutrients, are going to then help with the cancer and other diseases that you have in your body. And those combinations, I mean, that's where it's a big, big punch. It's like a right punch and a left punch, and you knock it out.
All right, second question. Are alternative forms of treatment better than conventional methods? Some examples would be megavitamins, cannabis or CBD oil versus chemotherapy and pharmaceuticals.
I think that any form of treatment can be better. Thinking about the preventative, the primary, secondary, and tertiary preventative methods that can be given to reduce any form of illness. I think.
Hello. Hi, Assuaged. I'm thankful to Assuaged for giving me a chance to discuss on esophageal cancer. First of all, I would like to make a note that due to changes in our lifestyle and our diet, which is a kind of, we have been consuming and diet which consists mostly of artificial ingredients, or we can say it's not naturally synthesized. We have been consuming a diet which is packed with different ingredients and it's manufactured in food industry. So it has been affecting our digestive system since the beginning, and now we are getting to see different kinds of diseases like esophageal cancer, colon cancer, etc., which manifests into a larger chronic disease condition. So I would like to emphasize on the point of having a good routine, good daily routine, good nutrition, and also consulting nutritionists, because of a new branch in therapeutics that's called nutrition genomics, which is developed on the basis of how our genes react with the food which we eat, and how our thoughts are also inclined to the food which we eat, and how it impacts the pathophysiology of different diseases. So yes, it's an interesting way to note that how what we eat is affecting our body, much larger manner. And it's not just what we eat, it's also our thoughts, our mind, how it's affecting us. And as a biomedical student and as a public health community intern, I urge everyone to look after their minds and also their body, but predominantly it's all about integrating your mental and physical health.
Anybody in particular have something they want to say right away on this? Yeah, go ahead, Katee.
So about the cannabis and CBD, first and foremost, I'll say that I'm in Georgia, which does not allow it yet. And I also have a mother-in-law who is currently going through chemotherapy and radiation for the third time. Her anxiety level is just so high. And it's so clear for a cancer patient to stay calm, to keep their immune system calm. It, like we discussed in the slides, it makes such an impact on the long-term health of a person and their ability to take in these medicines for their body to heal. And I really personally feel like this kind of treatment for patients who have cancer is really essential, especially with the cannabis and CBD, even if it's through other methods such as drops or sprays or edibles, simply because it's helping them cope with this huge thing that they're going through in life.
Wow, that's so critical. So has your mother-in-law found then, in the absence of those things, being where you are, has she found other things that have helped to calm her effectively?
She has. She is pretty old school. So when she got cancer for the first time, me and my husband, who are both in healthcare, said, "Oh, you should try some medical marijuana." And she was like, "Oh no, I would never." But seeing her go through this and also having a father who passed from esophageal cancer, I really think that it's not utilized enough, simply because it's not only hard for the family to go through, but it's just mentally imagining what they're having to think about, each treatment, every week, every setback, every question, anything that can kind of help alleviate that. And, alternative forms of treatment also could include therapy or just, anything that doesn't necessarily come from a doctor or a pharmacy or from a medical facility.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Who else has input here? Matthew, did you have something here?
Sure. I can talk a little bit on this, at least just from my perspective. I have had friends and relatives that have had cancer, and I know that at the times in which they had them, they've dealt with them with pretty conventional medicine, and it worked. So again, at this point, when they did get cancer and they haven't had it since. Well, one that he was a repeat. He had it more than once, but since he has not. So I don't know what the long term is, right? Is that is the chemo or anything, is that going to impact the body later on in life? Could they have used alternative methods such as the mega vitamins or some other way of using natural remedies to treat the cancer? Would it have subsided? I don't know. That's one of the things I think a lot of people have questions on, and which obviously, I'm not a physician, so I'm not able to give that kind of advice. But I would say, find what works best for you. Talk with your physician, talk with your doctor, find what works best. Maybe it's a balance of both, or maybe you're completely adverse to one or the other. But it is finding what's best. And similar, you might be going through chemo, but maybe you need something else to help, like, calm you and level you and help you through it. And it's important to know your body and to know what is best for yourself.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that I'm not sure if everybody that's on today's call is based here in the U.S. Or not, but Craig and I in our other business have traveled around the world for different things, and it's interesting to find what resources are available in other countries to treat cancer, and there is so much more out there than what is available to us here in the United States, sadly. But one of the problems that a lot of patients will run into then is, of course, then the out-of-pocket cost of that is so astronomical to be treated, as far as the traveling back and forth and the cost of the medical treatments themselves. It becomes prohibitive for most people, given that here in the U.S. we can go to get treatments that are covered by our insurance. And so, we talked about this a little bit on last week's call even, but really it comes down to the individual, what research we want to do to find out what options exist for us, and then really what we can afford to do or not, as sad as that is regarding our own health. But that's kind of the world that we live in, of what can we afford to pay for out of our own pocket based on what's available in other countries, and what can we get through our own insurance company. And then to your point, Matthew and Katee both, is, what can we use alongside of conventional treatments if we're using those to help minimize symptoms, to help continue to detoxify our body if we're going through chemotherapy, so that the negative side effects from the treatment are less than they might be otherwise, right? If we just went that route. So very interesting topic, given the world we live in and just different rules and regulations around the world.
And then I'll also add on where the first question of exercise and a healthy diet are so important, because think about this: if you are you go to the doctor because you're having a problem and they diagnose it and it's cancer, immediately they want to do something. They want to start chemotherapy. They want to start some type of within the next 5 days, and you get a shock, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I have cancer. I've got to get rid of this, and I've got to do whatever it takes. You don't think about other alternatives. You don't think about, like, oh, wait a minute, let me hit the pause button and let me think about what I need to do. And even though the cancer has probably been in your system for quite some time, you immediately want to jump in. And if we were to actually have that exercise, that healthy diet, we would then be able to hopefully not even get cancer. We wouldn't have to come to that question of what in the world are we going to do. But I think the combination and really an evaluation of really almost hitting the pause button, like I said, say, what are we going to do to make sure that we can take care of this in the best way possible for you and your family?
Yeah. Other input on this topic?
So I just wanted to say, I actually did the slide on holistic treatment for esophageal cancer. And so I just found some other alternative methods. Well, in the form of a supplement type thing, I found the liposomal mistletoe, which is supposed to activate those natural killer cells to kind of go and attack that cancer. And then the other thing I found, and I looked up how to say it, was the glutathione, and that's supposed to be a highly reactive tripeptide to try to detoxify the carcinogens of the cancer. So I did find that. And then outside of supplements, I found immunotherapy and then hyperthermia therapy as well.
Excellent. Yeah, all those are, and I think that goes back to what type of research can we do on our own, right? To find out what can we do to supplement in addition to anything we're receiving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else on this particular question? All right, let's go to a third one here. Do you think that the term holistic mental health and wellness are always associated with activities like yoga, which many are afraid to try? More education is needed on wellness activities such as walking, reading, journaling, or drawing. Anything that makes you slow down is beneficial.
Being in the Bible Belt, I hear holistic, and people are like, oh no, I'm not a hippie. Little do they know that it's essentially anything that you can do without having to be given a prescription. Anything that kind of connects you to your inner self or to nature, or anything that kind of just lets you calm down, even if it's coloring. I mean, just having that chance to take in yourself, just to be at peace. And like one of the slides discussed, those 20 minutes of peace release melatonin, which helps you sleep, which helps you rest and regenerate. You know, it's so essential to find what makes you happy, and bonus points if it's a activity that keeps you healthy as well, like an exercise. But just kind of internal inventory of what you need to make your mental health and your physical health and all those other ways of looking at your day brighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a perfect example of that is my mother. If it doesn't come with a label on it from the pharmacy, she doesn't believe that it's proven to be able to help you in any way. So she won't try anything. You could even say, you know, like, Mom, try this latest, greatest infrared heating pad. And she'd be like, oh, I don't know. It might have a negative side, right? So for her, even though the prescription bottle comes with a list of side effects, you know, longer than what she could ever read, at the end of the day, to her, it's been proven, right? And so she's okay with any of those side effects, just not side effects that might come from something that hasn't been studied for her particular illness. And so, you know, that holistic term can really scare people for some reason, which is so funny because they're simple everyday things that we do in our life anyway. And if we don't associate that with healing, people generally seem to be okay with it. But as soon as we associate it with it possibly healing something, it becomes scary to them. Anybody else have any?
Almost like a conspiracy theory of some sorts. It's like, you know, how in the world could this happen? It's so simple, and it doesn't take any effort whatsoever. But you know, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, really, a lot of the things that are holistic are so simple, and you know, but you've got to be able to practice it. And we're in a very busy environment these days, where there's all kinds of screens and TVs and phones and everything that's disrupting our lives. We actually have to make it a practice to have that quiet time. And if you're in an environment, we're not in Pennsylvania where you can go outside every single day and just, you know, because right now it's kind of cold out. But, you know, if you're in a beautiful place, or if to get outside and to appreciate nature is, you know, for, you know, 20, 30 minutes, that is one of the best things that you can do to really help detoxify your body and in a holistic way.
Yeah, I really love all these thoughts on this question, and just thinking of like alternative ways to balance out health. And I know that like the word holistic, it's rooted in the word holy, which is to be whole, which is kind of similar to be healing. And to be whole, like I view like Western medicine can definitely be an integral, like essential part of, you know, maybe some part of recovery or healing process you're going through. But we have all these other dimensions of life, like a massive amount of like other dimensions, like social, financial, spiritual. I think Craig and Jenny like covered some of these a few weeks ago. And I think we just fail to look at this whole picture of like, we don't always need that thing outside of ourselves, like, you know, that prescription to make us feel better. Like it can literally come down to taking a 20-minute walk every day, or calling 3 friends and seeing if that like raises our mood, which could help our physical wellness. And I think that the idea of like, we need to work hard long term is way less appealing to people than like, here's an immediate fix and we have proof for it. So I think a lot of us out of anxiety just cling to that, but I don't think Western medicine has all the answers. So I love the word holistic, but people have definitely a negative connotation of it in various places. But yeah, I just wanted to just chime in about all of that because I think it's really important.
I think what you said, Lauren, I think it was really neat. It just clicked in my brain. But you're talking about writing a prescription. Why don't we learn to write a prescription for a walk, for talking to a few friends? I mean, to exercise, to eating something healthier. I mean, write our own prescription for what we need to do on a given day. And I mean, if you think about it, what a prescription looks like, I mean, it's like take one of these, 2 of these every 12 hours, every 24 hours. Why don't you just do the same thing for your life and write a prescription for health? And that way it feels like, you know, if you're not if you don't like the holistic term for some weird reason. I mean, this is a way to get yourself and bridge the gap, I believe.
Yeah, I think one thing you said, Lauren, that hit me was I think sometimes people equate holistic with hard work. Holistic means, oh, I have to do something to make myself better versus, if we have a pharmaceutical, right, or conventional method, it's, oh, I'll just pop a pill or I'll go for this treatment versus me doing something for myself. And, as I sit here, I see my cat laying there on the sofa across the room. Sometimes it's as simple as, petting your cat or your dog. And, there's so many simple ways that we can do things to make us feel better. All right, let's hop on here to number 4. Do you think most Americans understand how their digestive systems affect their body's immune system? You are what you eat is a literal translation of what is happening in your body.
I would say that not most Americans understand how the digestive systems affect their body's immune system. I know we are what we eat, but many people put whatever they feel like into their body. I can say there is a danger about fried food because when the food is fried, that oil is eaten up. The fact of eating the oil, the chemistry of the oil change and become carcinogenic, which is cancer causing. So in order for us to protect our body against many types of cancer, we should avoid fried food and eat food that we may just add a little bit of oil on it and then eat it that way. And that will help us to prevent this esophageal cancer or any type of cancer. And the food also that we should eat should have a pH level between 7.3 and 7.4. So we need to watch on that. So we need to consume more of the fruits and vegetables that has a high pH level, and that will help prevent our body against a lot of cancer. And people really need to be educated in that area. And I know at Assuaged we're doing a good job by providing healthy food that can help prevent many type of diseases.
I'm just going to say absolutely not. Americans have no clue. I mean, they have no clue at all. I mean, and if they did, they would change like everything that they would possibly know, and they would not even go into the center part of the grocery store. They'd only take the outskirts of it, which is all the fruits and vegetables and and meats and things like that. But they really don't, and the media doesn't help. The pharmaceutical industries don't help. It's really a big problem. And because they make it so easy going to a McDonald's, a Wendy's, a Burger King, fast food, it makes it really difficult. There's no doubt about it. And eating healthy, truthfully, does it take a little bit more work? I would have to say it does. But any good thing takes a little bit more work than so easy. I
think eating healthy is it's not convenient for people. And I know myself, like my schedule is way overbooked. And so eating is the last thing on my mind. And it's really hard to just go grab something like a nice salad when you haven't made it and prepped it and prepared it. And it's very challenging. And I'm a disciplined person. And for people who don't understand how their bodies and their food work together, it's more difficult.
Yeah. Alona, I saw you perk up on this one.
Yeah, so I recently just switched to a plant-based diet, and it's been a very interesting journey. I've noticed a few barriers. One is, it's sometimes more expensive. The time, like you said, it's easier just to hop in your car and go to McDonald's for a burger rather than, go to the grocery store and buy the ingredients you need to make a certain recipe. And time, I had to do a lot of my own research, foods to incorporate, what I can, what I can't eat, where to access these foods, resources I have to reach out to if I have questions about the diet. And I think with a lot of people, it's the same factors. I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't know where to start, where to begin. And I think if you really want to make a positive change for yourself, you'll make the time, you'll do your own research. So, and it's also social media, I've noticed, is also a very big factor for any change. More negative reinforcement than positive, but
because it is a lot of work, especially initially when you're trying to switch everything, because we all have some pantry, refrigerator, freezer at our house, right? And suddenly, Alana, you're in this position where it's like pretty much everything I have has got to go, and I've got to bring all this new stuff in. And so that transition tends to be the hardest part. But then once you get a new pantry built, then you're accessing it just like any other recipe you've ever made in your life, and you have all the spices and all the staples that you need to make those recipes in there so that you can easily access them. And then it really just becomes a lot of planning and prepping ahead. We went downstairs in our house and looked in the basement freezer. It's filled with different soups and things like that we make huge batches of, and then we just freeze smaller portions of it so that it's easier later on, because that eliminates us having to think about food. We're not very good about thinking about food. On a weekend, it's a little bit better, but during the week, it's hard. That planning and prepping, even if you do it one day a week, to cut up all your different vegetables and have them washed so that whether you're going to eat them raw or cook them, they're just ready and waiting for you. Anybody else have anything special?
I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
It's like that, Lana, but it was like you have to have a supportive cast around you. I mean, sometimes the closest people are the ones like, oh, you're not going to have this, or they bring something in. And, if you ask us, well, especially me, she's been healthier more of her life than I have. And if you understood what I ate as a kid, from cheese and pasta, and then more cheese and pasta, and it was just like, and now I take a look now and I eat so healthy, but it's because I've had a supportive cast. And that's huge. I mean, just, over the last 3 weeks, so I'm going to do this for 90 days, and I've done this before, I eliminate sugar and I eliminate white flour from my diet. And, for most people, they're like, oh my goodness, how in the world can you possibly do that? I mean, you have to look at the ingredients. But I feel like $1 million. I mean, it's, over the holidays, I ate, quite frankly, too much white flour. Probably not a lot of sugar, but I just didn't eat as healthy as I could, and I felt inflamed. And now it's completely different. My inflammation has gone down. I feel better, but I've got a supportive cast also that's gonna help me along.
I tempt them with cookies all day long. I'm just kidding.
I'll say something too on that note. A great way to get a supportive cast is to do something during Easter time for Lent, because then you don't look like you're just casting it out of your life. So I always tell people, if they're going to give up something, not to be religious. I'm not saying this as a religious way, but, just take those days and just give it a try, give it up for Lent. I told my children, I was like, let's just see how it makes us feel, because I knew long term it would make them feel better. But tricking them into the mindset, not to mention they have a lot less pressure because they're giving it up for a different reason.
I love that. That is an awesome idea.
Good, nice, Katee.
Matthew, you had something to say.
Yeah, I just had a question. So anyone that is watching and we say give up sugar, what does that mean? Are you giving up processed sugar, natural sugar? So does that mean you're not eating fruit? What does that look like when you say I'm giving up sugar?
Sure, great question. Basically, first of all, I rarely eat any processed foods, but that is definitely, like, for example, there are some protein bars that are vegan that I love, but those are gone because there's some type of sugar in there. Really, the only type of sugar that I'm consuming is if there is something natural in something, and fruits or vegetables. And if it is, even on the fruit side of things, I've even kind of decreased that because, but I also eat the whole fruit, or I blend it up in a smoothie of some sort because I want to get the whole fruit in there and all the different fiber. But I've eliminated all white sugar, out of my system. And it's just, and so I'm not trying to get it like eating tons of fruits like, oh my goodness, I got to get something else. That's how I'm doing it.
Yeah, and one other thing that you didn't mention, but I know
Oh.
that you've eliminated this time and in the past, is all dried fruits as well. So
Oh, yeah, that's
we don't need a
Oh,
ton
yes.
of dried fruits normally, but sometimes we'll have them on occasion in something or whatever. But when he cuts this out, he also cuts out all the dried fruit because it's so concentrated.
It is.
But like this morning at breakfast, there were raspberries, and he had some of those. So the fresh fruits stay in there, just not a ton of them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Other thoughts there? All right, let's go to, I think, our final question. Whoops. All right, last one. What if a clinical trial is offered to a patient suffering from esophageal cancer? Clinical trials offered by the standard medical system can be risky. Testing trials and errors may lead to worsened conditions. Does anybody have any thoughts here?
Yeah, so I have it's a similar situation. Several years back, my dad had a brain bleed, and in the long story short, he passed away from it. But when he was in the hospital, the doctor came in and said, "Hey, we have a you." It was very they're very direct, right? Doctors are. They came in and they said, "We have this trial kind of procedure, and there's a 50 to 60% chance you'll survive. If you don't do it, there is 100% chance you won't survive." So you kind of look at in those situations when you're presented with this kind of like mortality, your own mortality. What do you? So you may look at it and be like, what do I have to lose? Obviously besides your life, but in the situation that you're in, maybe even with this a trial, for cancer, depending on how far along you are, where you think you are, and what the potential benefits are. That's going to be a tough decision, but in the situation we were in, my dad, with what cognitive ability he had left, was like, yeah, I want that. Give me that opportunity to survive. So I think that's just what people are going to look for.
Yeah, wow. I'm very sorry to hear about your dad. And you make a great point there, right? Though, of what it comes down to the choice that we're faced with at that time. And if we think there is a chance it's going to help us in some way, even if there's risk associated with it, many times the patient will probably take that. Has anybody else had any experiences with that? Yeah.
Oh, so I haven't had any experiences with it, but fortunately, but what I would say about the trial is if I was in the situation where I had esophageal cancer and there was a trial offered to me, I would try to preserve my life as much as possible. However, if it did lead to worsening conditions and I had no quality of life left, I would want to have a plan to say I want to end my life, like do not resuscitate because I have no quality of life. Like that would be the caveat to trying a trial.
Yeah, that brings up a whole nother interesting point, right?
Mm-hmm.
The do not resuscitate, or even, the physician-assisted suicide.
Yeah.
And what are the choices when we get to that point? And that could even be an interesting topic for an entire other live discussion.
Right.
Thoughts around that. Lauren, Katee, or Alona, did any of you have any thoughts here?
I think I'm just engrossed in hearing of. I think I'm okay. Yeah, you can go ahead.
When I think of trials, I think of
yeah.
So when I think of clinical trials, I think of St. Jude, even though it's for children, and doing the research on that facility, I know that they're done clinical trials. And with clinical trials, we need to remember that while it's scary, that's also how we learn new treatments. Sometimes it's past of having a traditional treatment option. As a person who has cancer and predisposed to it, I think that if it were for me, I would personally choose that option, just so that I would have another chance and just have the feeling of control over the situation.
You're breaking up just a little bit, Katee.
Yeah, but I think we got the
Yeah.
drift on that. Yes.
Yep. Okay, Lauren?
Oh, yeah, I think having choice at any point in time, at any age or any situation, I think is just vital, and that's what I would want. But I think that I'm good with questions at this point.
Awesome. Alona, did you have anything else you wanted to add on this one?
Just kind of going off what everyone else has said, I think it's a situation where you're not, like, you'll never really understand unless you're in it yourself to make that decision, because you are ultimately taking the risk, whether you do decide to go through with the trial or you do not. You're taking that risk, whether the outcome is positive or negative. So I think it's ultimately a decision that, you know, you have to make for yourself and trust your gut and hope for the best. But personally, if I were in that situation, going off what Matthew said, you know, if the mortality rate, like if you decide to go through with the trial, like your mortality rate could increase, you know, you always want the best for yourself. So I think it depends what you feel comfortable doing and what your provider says. And
Yeah, absolutely. And back to what, just going off of what Katee said real quick, you know, to her point, if it wasn't for these different trials, right, we would never have any sort of treatments. Eventually we have to have trials, and, you know, so that we can develop new treatments and get approvals on new treatments. And so, right, there's good and bad that comes with everything. And so we have to be grateful that those things exist, but then we have to have that personal choice of being able to decide whether we want that for ourselves and our families or not, right, if it comes down to that. And so, you know, it's a very, very interesting concept, but certainly those trials are a good thing, because if it didn't exist, we wouldn't have anything to help anybody with anything in the medical field. But again, you know, back to everything we've talked about today, just that balance again of the importance of having medicine and treatments available to us, but at the same time, knowing enough to know that it's also our responsibility to take care of ourselves in all the ways that we can. From, you know, all the different holistic methods.
And I think what you said, I mean, you know, taking that responsibility, you know, we sometimes rely on someone else to, especially doctors as an example, to ultimately give us a prescription, to tell us this is exactly what we need to do. And as they are an expert in their certain way, but once again, it doesn't preclude us from doing our own research to say, I want a second opinion, whether that second opinion is another doctor, whether that second opinion is for yourself to take some time to examine something. It's very important to take that ownership, because it is your life and the people that you affect. So I just make sure that, you know, everyone knows that, you know, take ownership and that responsibility and research everything that you can, you know, as much as you can.
Any other comments before we end today's session? Yeah, go ahead, Katee.
So as someone who has lost a loved one to esophageal cancer, and, you know, us discussing this about Traci Braxton and the fact that her family has had to go through only having a year with her. My father had less than a year after his diagnosis, and it happened so fast. And so I'll say to anyone out there watching, you know, if you have a question, if you have some of these signs and symptoms, to make sure that you have a talk with your doctor. And if it does happen that you do have cancer, you're not alone. There are tons of support groups out there. There are tons of treatment options. There are tons of ways of having therapy. You know, and I think it can get in our heads easily. And I think taking, like you said, ownership of the situation and taking control is a great way to kind of feel like you have more peace. But yeah, is that it?
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for all of your contributions today. And we will look forward to seeing everybody next time.
Thank you so much for facilitating. It was great.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.